Throughout Fullmetal Alchemist Brotherhood, the main antagonists are the Homunculi. A homunculus is an artificially created being through the use of alchemy. The homunculi are unique antagonists in that each of them is the living personification of one of the 7 deadly sins. Each of them are near immortal due to the fact they are created and powered by a philosopher's stone. The homunculi don't age and are extremely resilient, making them very difficult to kill, but not impossible. One of the nuances in Fullmetal Alchemist Brotherhood is how particular the author was in regard to each of the homunculus' death. Each of their deaths is ironic in a sense that holds a lot of symbolism within the story, as each of their deaths reflect their shortcomings and sins. So let's look at each of their deaths individually to explore the irony. Firstly, lust. Lust is defined as a strong desire for something or someone. Lust clearly embodies these attributes in her speech, mannerisms, and actions. She is depicted as a beautiful woman with a tempting voice embodying the guilty desires of a man. She is deceptive and plays on the wants of a man, such as seen when she wooed Jean and used him to gain intelligence on Mustang's plans. We all remember her incredible death, but what's fantastic about it is how she dies on her knees. Being on your knees traditionally symbolizes surrender and vulnerability. It's ironic that the one seducing men would fall to her knees before a man, and specifically Mustang, who is known as a barefoot womanizer. She starts the trend of the homunculi falling to their own sins and shortcomings. Looking at gluttony next, the definition of gluttony is overindulgence in food or drink. One of the major aspects of gluttony is that he'll eat anything and anyone, including humans, making him a cannibal. The irony is that he's killed by his own ally pride by eating him, and it's fitting that the one who eats everything gets eaten. Next, and my favorite homunculi is envy. Envy is the resentment towards the happiness of someone and desire for them to lose it. It's a deceptive sin because we often find ourselves unconsciously being envious of others. Thus, envy was depicted as a shapeshifter and someone who is deceptive. In an effort to avenge Hughes, Mustang is the one to defeat envy. As a result, after envy's defeat, envy realizes that he is envious of the relationship and bond shared by Mustang and Hughes. Envy kills himself because he's envious of humans who initially seem to be weaker creatures but are able to have relationships, bonds, and experiences that envy is unable to have. Envy taking his own life was quite tragic and ironic, as the realization that he is envious of humans, the one thing that he hates, made him want to kill himself as he lost all sense of identity and meaning in life. In regards to sloth, the sin is known as being lazy or lethargic and being unwilling to perform anything that requires effort. He has tremendous power, but he decides that living and engaging in battle takes too much effort and gives up on living. He essentially dies because he was too lazy to keep on living. Thereafter, the homunculi wrath. Wrath is an intense anger that is often selfish, with a desire to take it out on someone. He's defeated and killed by Star, who once upon a time was also filled with wrath and intense anger towards alchemists and the government for the massacre of his people. He's killed by someone who, unlike him, overcomes their wrath and rechannels it towards a different cause. Next is pride, which is excessive satisfaction of one's own actions. He's very interesting because he doesn't actually die, but his ideals and sense of pride vanish after his defeat and are essentially killed. It's ironic how perhaps the most powerful homunculi is depicted as a small lonely boy. Pride is forced to resort to trying to take Ed's body for survival, and upon understanding that fact, he is distracted and defeated. The once proud homunculi has to stoop to relying on a human for survival, and as a result loses all of his pride and is internally killed and turned into a fetus. It's clearly symbolic how the once perhaps overly prideful and confident of his abilities Edward is the one to defeat him, as throughout the show he matures and becomes more humble as opposed to prideful. Finally, greed. Greed is an intense and selfish desire for something. Greed is associated with being selfish and looking out for oneself, so it's ironic that greed is forced to share a body with Ling. His death is brilliant, as he isn't defeated, but he sacrificed himself because the one thing he craved wasn't money, women, or fame, but friends and companions. He realizes that his allies were all he needed to be satisfied and that his greed was satiated and essentially killed. One of the messages that I personally got through the irony and symbolism within the homunculi is that Father attempts to create perfect beings, whom are soldiers, by specializing them in one aspect so that they can be one-track-minded and stronger. But ironically, this made them all imperfect and quite tragic, as it highlights the importance of moderation and not falling into the traps of our desires or sins. The story shows countless characters like Mustang or Scar and their wrath, or Alphonse and his envy of a human body, or add in his pride in his alchemy. But the difference between them and the homunculi is that they are able to overcome it and come back as better people. These sins are a part of all of us, but what Fullmetal Alchemist does brilliantly is remind us not to fall into them and become absorbed into these desires, as they will ultimately become our undoing.